Hey there, it's Lyle from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Have you ever, I get so many messages and emails about where does the inspiration come from, how do I manage it, what do I do? And one of our subscribers, his name is Sydney, asked me particularly to focus on inspiration. Today's video is all about inspiration. This is the inspo piece, this light. So this is where it came from, and this is the piece of furniture. Watch along and see how I did it. So this is the piece for today. It's an air call. It's in reasonably good nick. There's a few dings and chips in it, but nothing to write home about. This is a beautiful piece of furniture. It's got the usual sort of air call malarkey with the twisty turny handles, so I'll be keeping those on. I'll be painting with the piece. It's clean inside, nice inside, so there's nothing that needs done inside with it. So what is today all about? What is today's video all about? Well, today's video is all about inspiration. So many people ask me, and this video is for Sydney, because Sydney has said, where do you find it? What do you do? So this is for Sydney, but for all the other people that have asked, where does it come from? How do you manage it? What do you do? So this is what I want to kind of show you, and I'm breaking it down into sort of simple sort of format. So I have a light. This is my light. You can see all the colours in the light. We'll come back to the light in a minute.
Turn the light off a second, you'll probably get a better idea of the colours. Yeah.
That's the colours. So this is the colour palette I'm going to be working from, not when it's lit. When it's lit, it throws different colours up. So that is the light. But that we'll come back to that in a minute, because I also have some other things here. I have it's a little manicure set. You know, it's just a little manicure set. I have a little pot. And I have this. I was wanting to paint something with blues, either dark navy or a teal blue, a light blue with pattern, add some white, keep a simple pattern, or go down the sort of India. This was paper shade was from India, so and if you watched the live, you saw me buy it at Christmas time at the Christmas markets in Edinburgh. So I looked at all these different things. Now, these are not necessarily, these are just household items that I quickly sort of pulled together to talk about inspiration. But inspiration can come from a beautiful view, the colours in a tree in autumn. If you ever looked at the trees in autumn, they've got greens, they've got reds, they've got russets, they've got yellows, brown. There's your colour palette instantly. Skies give you a beautiful colour palette. The grass, heather, flowers, birds, it's endless. You just need to look around you and see what you're surrounded with. And if that's challenging, you can go on to Pinterest. And one of the things that I like to do in my spare time is just look on Pinterest at old doors. If you just type into Pinterest, beautiful old doors, you will find the most amazing hand painted. You've got your palettes, you've got everything is in it. So inspiration can come from a shirt that you're wearing, or some doors in a row in a street. Those colours all work together, then there's your palette. So the first thing I like to do when I am doing a piece of furniture is I either have the idea because it came from my stash and I think, oh, I'm going to use that, or I look for inspiration. So because this is showing you how I get my inspiration, we're going to pick a piece. So I'm going to pick the light. There's a shocker, eh? I'm going to pick the light today. So what would I think about doing first? Before I do anything, because I've got all my stuff, I've went over to the shed and picked up some stencils. In here, I've got my more stencils. I've got this is my tray with all my bohemian stuff that I use. This is my used all the time box. So I brought that out. I know I've got my stencils, but colour palette. So how do we organise a colour palette from this? So let's have a look at it.
Bring it down to the floor so we can
bring
see
it down.
Yeah, and then we can get it all in the same shot.
There we go. Right.
There we go.
Sorry, Matty. Now, what have we got going on here? So I'm picking out, see this blue here, this light blue. This is going to be my base. So you'll have to kind of then look at your paint choices and your paint colours. And you know what? I brought all the paint out, but I didn't bring the paint I was looking for. I mean, I've got tons of paint sitting here, but I'll get that blue in a minute. I'm going to be using Annie Sloan's Greek blue for the blue. Now, inspiration shouldn't be that by the time this piece of furniture is finished, it looks like the light. It shouldn't. It should be a sort of your interpretation. Finding inspiration from other people's work isn't copying it. It is literally just finding something in it that you can change, you can adapt, you could do differently. It may have been, like quite often I look at where my inspiration came from and I look at my piece at the end and they're just so dissimilar, but that's where it came from. So inspiration doesn't need to be glaringly obvious, but I'm going to, for the sake of argument, keep this pretty much. I like the blacky sort of navy blue colour, so we will be putting, I've got a black and a navy blue, which I'm going to mix probably for round these borders here. The blue is going to be in the middle. I like this because it's got the small details in the dark colours. It's got the white spots. We're going to have to try and recreate something like this. This centre flower here, I'm going to do some sort of template and we'll have that on the apertures. Everything else is kind of subject to, because I haven't done a mood board for this, which I normally would, and I would normally know what I'm going to do first. I'm just letting you see it live as it happens and how I work it out. So I'm going to go away and paint this Greek blue, which is this colour blue. Do you know what? It's really silly of me. I've got every other colour here sitting to show you, but it's this sort of light blue. I'm going to be doing it this light blue, okay?
Hang on.
Or similar to that. My blue might be slightly darker, but we're going to have to mix up a pink because it's a sort of pinky purple. It's not quite capri pink, which is very bright. It's got a little bit of blue in that to kind of get that shade. We can get furl with our green, which is this colour here. I've already talked about the dark tones. We can use a black and a navy together to get the dark. This is painted not with white. If you look at it closely, this is painted with an off-white, a sort of cream. So I'm going to be using Versailles, which is this colour here. And can you see this green here? I think that's a dead ringer for Antibes green. So you can see how we're going to build our colour palette together just by looking at our inspiration. You can see possibly into the future of how the pattern's going to develop. But the first thing I'm going to do before I can do any more is go and paint this the Greek blue. I wish I had brought it through. That's so annoying. I don't know what I was thinking. I brought these blues, but these blues are not anything like the blues I'm looking for. So I'll go away, paint this two generous coats, two good coats, a nice good two coats, because I don't want any of, it's not one of the ones where you have your kind of wood showing through or anything, and it's not going to be too distressed, this piece either. It's going to be quite sort of stylized as opposed to having all the distress and working in frames. We will be working in frames, but not a distressed kind of frame. We're going to keep it quite tight, and especially because I like all this tight pattern here. So we're going to try and recreate that around these edges. So I'm going to go away, do the blue, and then we'll come back and we will forge on. I'll probably do a little sort of template. I mean, I might even show you me making the template just so that we can do a template in there, and we'll get on with the pattern. What I've done is I've given the bottom half, I've not painted the top because I'm going to do it a completely different colour, and we'll get to that at the end. And that's another top tip on if you want to make your furniture pop, there's certain things you can do. So for today, I'm not keeping it all one colour. I'm going to do this a different colour, but we'll do that in the end when we see where everything sits. Okay, because it's always good. You automatically get, right, out of my colour palette, this is what I need to do. So we're in agreement that we've got our inspo. because we know we've done that, right? So we've done our inspo, right? That's the lamp, yeah? The next thing you need to work on, hang on, helps if I spell it right, is your colour, yeah? What colours are you going to use? Are you completely changing it from your inspo? Because that's easily done. I quite often take inspo and completely change my colour palette. So you can go, just all you need to do is look at what you're thinking your inspo is and change every one of those colours for a colour that suits you. That's all you need to do, just change it up. So we've got our inspo, we're now going moving on to colour. Before we get to it, I mean, I've got all my stencils and everything out here right now, but we're going to concentrate on colour first. So we've already agreed that we can use Annie Sloan's Versailles, which is the cream colour. We've agreed we can use the Furl colour. We've agreed we can use Antibes green. Now I'm going to try and hit upon, with this mix here, a sort of purpley pink. It might need sort of paler sort of colour in it, like a little bit. We could add just a little touch of the Versailles just to lighten it up and see if we can get something that we're happy with. I think it could be doing with a little bit more brightness. So we'll pop a little bit more pink in and a little bit more of this just to brighten up. You could probably benefit of using white if you're trying to make a sort of brighter shade. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm not, yeah. So that's going, we know what the formula is for the pink, which means we can recreate it across the piece now. So we've got that. Now I've been mixing the next colour up in larger quantities because we're going to do a black. Sorry, there's a little bit of water in my pot there, just get rid of that. We'll be doing a sort of black navy blue mix. So I'm going to be doing something like maybe a sort of that much blue and probably about that much black. And let's just give that a good mix up and see what happens. It should be a really jet blacky blue, not quite black. Let's just see what it looks like on white. Yeah, right, okay. So we've managed that now. So this, let's just have one quick look so I haven't missed anything, because the last colour is the colour of the furniture itself. So here is our palette. I think might off camera, I might brighten this up with a little bit of white. When you're adding a sort of cream, you're still going down a shade, but you want to lift it. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to that. If I had a yellow here, I could probably add a yellow and it would lighten it, but I don't. So this is the sort of colours that we are going to be using on the piece. So we know that. But let's just stick this to the side first, because we need to agree, you need to have to think about where you want to put all of the colour. So I'm going to move these just now, because at the end, we'll go through each one. Because this is how I work out inspo, or that's stencils. I had lots of stencils I was looking at them a minute ago. So my black, I've already kind of thought in my head, because if you look at my inspo piece, around these edges, it's sort of plain black. Yeah, you haven't got into a huge amount of pattern on this point. But if you look at it, it's got all the little dots. It's got quite a lot of detail. So we're trying to not copy it, but we're trying to work out where our black's going to go. Now, I have some masking tape here, because this band here, now this is where we get into the framing situation. See this whole band that goes around this furniture here? Tell you what I'll do, I'll put some black on it so you know where I'm talking about. So this band here, it goes down here. It runs along here, and this is it here. That is going to be black. But then I want to have some blue, but then I want to have some black again. So I'm going to take my masking tape and I'm going to tape off, trying to get it reasonably straight. Tape off this section here. And this section in here, because all the way around in the cupboard doors, this border here, I'm going to paint black. I'm trying not to stick this on too much because I really need to do the outer black first. But I'm going to go away and do those 2 black borders, yeah? And then we'll come back and we'll decide where our next colour is going to be, or whether we're going to work on the outer edges and work our way in, okay? The next thing you have to think about after you've looked at your inspo and you've got your colour palette, we've organised our colour palette, is the design. So let's just write design so that we can go all over this at the end. Design. So that's design. Yeah? I'll remove these just now because we're going to get in the way, but that's what we're going to look at now, is design. How do I then, from a piece of inspo, and I've picked my colour palette, what do I then do? I then go and look at what I have. Am I going to use stamps? Am I going to use stencils? Do I need maybe a transfer? Could I use inlays? Do I need to make my own sort of template? And I go and look. So how I started the search, when I looked at this and I thought of the colours, I thought, right, okay, I'll go over and I'll grab some stencils, because I could stamp down here to do the tighter pattern, this tight pattern. I could stamp it, but I'm not. I'm going to stencil it because there'll be other areas that probably we could stamp. So then when you get into stenciling, you have to kind of think about what you're looking for at the time. Now, I've pulled a whole bundle here out, and it can be overwhelming if you've got too many things. So what I do is I just separate a few. So I'm not going to be using all of these, but we're looking for something. Let me just open this up. We're looking for something to go round this black. I've obviously picked out some bigger ones. Because it has some bigger sections, this lamp, I've looked for some wider stencils as well. They might come into play later on. That might be just what I'm looking for a centre. Let's keep that to the side. Right, so we're looking for a thin border. Now, you can't see these ones because they're so, they're clear. But let's look at ones that, like, I like this one. There's a lot of detail to it. There's a lot of, can you see the detail? And that's what I'm trying to find, detail. So I'm going to do this in a cream, almost like a sort of bone inlay around these parts here. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this part because obviously I've got all the ridges, but I'm wondering whether I could just maybe even just kind of work out something over the top of this, or maybe just use Poscas on this part might work. So let's just leave that because of the detail here, and let's just focus on these black panels here, which are easier to deal with. So I think that was a quick decision for me because I'd put quite a lot in there. So maybe that's good. That saves it being too boring for you guys. Right, okay, stenciling. You've seen me do stenciling so many times. I'm sure it gets old, but let's just recap on the good stenciling practice, which is a little bit like remembering all the things. Martin, do you want me to move some of his paint?
No,
I've built a little barricade of paint wall.
There's a wall that I've got to try and get around.
Martin's trying to get his
I've made a little hole for me to
his
get
legs
into just
and
there.
that. Yeah. So anyway, paint. Stenciling. You're gonna need a stencil brush, or let's just have a look at these. You don't have to have stencil brushes, you just need to have a brush that would be appropriate. Now I'm looking for quite a small one, and I think this is going to be a little bit like a sledgehammer to crack a nut, but we'll see. I would stencil with this. There's nothing wrong with this. I'd probably be known to stencil with something like this. Stenciling, once you get it down, isn't that difficult. It isn't that tricky either. So you need your stencil brush, you need your stencil. I've got tacky spray. If you wanted to tacky spray it together, I'm going to adjust this. I adjust all my stencils just so that they work for me. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And the chances are, if you've adjusted it once, it'll work again for you the next time. It's just so I can get the sort of, am I putting the small dots on the inside or the pattern on the inside? I think I'm going to do the little dots on this side here. Now, my brush is quite big, and I'm apt to think that I might go over onto my paint finish. So this is something you don't very often see me do, because normally in the sort of kind of rustic kind of looks, the real sort of distressed looks, you're not too bothered whether it goes everywhere. Well, that's normally my ethos. But let's just do this and do a little barrier just across there like that. Kind of help it stick down as well. So getting it into position, let's just get it into the position we want it to be in. Yeah, that's just going to keep everything nice and clean. I'm just going to fix this part of the tape because it's kind of not quite straight. There we go. Right, so normally I hold stencils, so this is a little bit of joy for me as well. Now, I'm going to just get my cream paint. Now, I'm just going to use this little piece of sticky post-it here to offload my paint. Sorry, Marty. Marty is in a tiny, tiny space right now.
Just trying to get close enough in so
Right.
I can see you. Sorry.
So I've offloaded my paint enough that I don't think it's going to make any difference. Now, there's a lot of tiny little holes in this, and this is going to be one of those stencils that you're probably going to have to wash because it'll clog up really quickly with the paint. But you can see I'm going round in a circle.
The twirly swirly motion.
That is it, Mary. The swirly twirly works the charm. So, because you're almost like swirling it into the holes of the stencil. This is going to take a hot minute. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna do something like this as well on the end here so that I can take it right up to. Yeah, this is going to take a minute to go around the whole piece. And then once I've done it, I quite like to just go a wee once over and we're done. And just remove it, and you shouldn't have any bleed through. That one there's a little bit. I think obviously I went a little bit crazy. So lining it up again. I mean, normally I would say it doesn't matter if it's straight, but it does kind of matter with this. I think we're sort of good there. The tape's coming off there. Pull it tight, make sure it's down. Now, let's start again. And you can see I didn't go back in to put more paint on my brush. I don't think I need it right now, especially if I've had this little bit of bleed through at the top. Is anybody going to care about that? No, I wouldn't worry about it. See, I'm still the same me. I'm trying to be tidy, but you know, I'm not worrying about it. And I might need another little tiny little dab of paint. Twirl it around right to the very end. Make sure you've done it all again. Back up to the top and remove. I could show you how to fix that once it's dry. I don't want to put this over the top of it right now. I think, is that straight, man? I think it's kind of running a little bit, but we'll make it work by putting that back over the top there. I am going to do this whole design all around the black edge. Yeah, that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to be a little bit of a hot minute on that one. So just a sort of housekeeping sort of issue when you're using, I'm going to put my glasses on. Oops, don't drop them in the basin. When you're using fine stencils that have a really fine pattern and tiny, tiny little holes, do not leave them sitting beside your piece, especially if you're going to continue to use it throughout the design. Put them in a basin of water, just sit it at the side. Anything that you've used, stick in this basin, because that way you can clean them off as you go. So these are stencils that I'm going to be using, so they're just in here ready, because what happens very quickly with these ones is the paint very quickly fills up these tiny little holes, and before you know it, it's not stenciling the way you'd like it to. So just give them I use a nail brush. It's soft, it's not too hard. I wouldn't use something like this on the wide aperture stencils because it will start to bend them, like, for example, let me just show you. This one here, you have to be sit this down on a flat surface and scrub gently in circular motions, probably with a green dish scourer as opposed to a scrubber. But I use these green, they're not green, sorry, these nail brushes. I use them for my stamps as well because they're soft enough that they don't hurt them. Put my stamp flat in my bottom of my paint sink, get clean water and scrub them if I'm using paint. If I'm using ink, I use Stays On ink remover. So anyway, what did I just do with that stamp? Oh, it's in here. So, and then just give it a really good dry off because you don't want any moisture in your stencil when you go to use it because that will just cause bleed through. Now, we're not going to be using this one right at the moment, but I know that it's ready for the next time. So, we're working on this door, yeah? Now, we're still at the design part. Design. So how are we going to now, what you missed off camera was I painted this part in here, cream, and I did a cream band down the bottom. So that's all you've missed. We've got this here, but I want to show you other things right now as well, which are useful, or they might not be, but see here where I've got bleed through. I don't know why that happened, but it did. And I've got a patch here as well. I want to show you the fixes for these. Just take your black and paint that out. Just paint that part out and just let it dry. Same way here, just paint it out like that and let it dry, and we can come back and we can fix that. Right, so let's just think about it. We're looking for something to go along this band here. So this is all stencil work. Now, one thing I've got to say is this, it doesn't matter how you got from A to B if you end up with a beautiful piece of furniture at the end of the day. It's great if you can do a whole heap of hand painting and all sorts of bells and whistles. Yeah, that's fine. You can incorporate them with your other mediums, but creating something using stamps and stencils is all in how you use the stamps and stencils. So you can use a stencil and it'll look like everybody else's a stencil. But if you use your stencils and any stamps you have in a different way, then suddenly your furniture is different. And you've got from A to B and you're happy with it and you're comfortable, because trying to put too much pressure on you to do a whole load of hand painting and a whole load of zhuzhy bougie stuff to get the job done just adds more pressure. I think that there is nothing wrong with being good at stenciling and nothing wrong with being good at stamping. These are all things that make it that when you add all the other different things, you've got from A to B and you've produced something beautiful. So this whole piece is going to be created with stamps and stencils, no hand painting. So anybody with some stamps and some stencils, and I'm trying not to use too many as well, so you don't need a whole heap. But this is the good way to kind of produce a really polished look at the end of the day without having to even go down the route of being able to hand paint. So there you go. Now I've got this one here. I'm not going to list all of these stencils at the end because I really don't have a clue where they all came from. I've had them for a long time. But what you're needing for this part is a small border. Anything that you've got with your stencils that has a border. And this is the border here that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to be putting it along the top here. Along the top on this part here. Now, I've got the same Versailles cream paint as I had yesterday, and I've got my little stencil brush. You can't see me, but I'm offloading my paint, and it's quite a big brush. So let's just move this down a little bit because I really want like the top line on here. So let's just see how we go with this. Any fixes where it goes over, we can repair those with our black. So I mean, some you'll see me taping up because I really don't want it to get paint onto things, but some you'll not see me paint up. Oh, my stomach's gurgling. It must be getting near lunchtime. So I am going to put this right across the top of this black area, right across the front of the furniture. Yeah, so you can see, let's get the nail and get rid of that part there. You can see this here. It's always good to have a little bit of your original colour that you painted with on your palette so that you can just fix those as you go. It's still maybe a little bit wet to fix. I would kind of wait till they dry, but if you can do these small things as you go, it's a good. I'm going to be stenciling over the top of here anyway. Right, so we're going to be putting that right across the top, so we know that. This band here, what we're going to do now. This is my stencil of choice. I'm just going to rip this part here because I do want tape on this. Not because I'm trying to protect it, just because I want to have that tape to kind of stick it onto my furniture. It's this band here I'm looking for, the one with the flower and the sort of leaf part here. So let's start up here. Now I want it on the furniture, but good to have a wee keek behind it. Keek, there's a good Scottish word. Okay, how would I explain keek? A wee look is the word keek behind it. So back to the same Versailles cream paint. I'm trying not to be too, because we just know that we've just stuck that stencil behind there, so we don't want to smudge it. And we're using the twirly method, not the pointy, sticky, stabby method, not that one. We're not doing this with that. We are going to pick the edge of this stencil, just the edge of it. We're only looking for the edge of it. So you can pick any sort of stencil. Now, from my inspo piece, which is my lampshade, I'm kind of doing a sort of homage to it, but I'm going to make mine a little bit more florally as opposed to Indian. And that's what I was trying to say about inspo. Inspo isn't about copying. It's about just literally taking the inspiration from it. I'm not going to go too far down with this part here because it's this band here that I really want. So let's have a wee look at that. Whoopsie. This is going to go just back onto here and see if we can kind of match it. Let's just see if we can get a little bit of tape onto this. I'm just wanting it to kind of keep me straight, if anything else. And the same thing happening. Whoops. Now I can see that moved there, so you have to be kind of careful. It's because we're on a corner and we've not got a huge amount to tape it to. And I'm going to take this flower right up into this edge. As your stencil brush gets a little bit more absorbed with paint, you might find you need to kind of charge it more often than when you started. I can see that I went a little bit on the black there, but I can fix that. Can you see that there? I can fix that. So again, how are we wanting this to go? Really?
Just come around the other side a bit.
This is about sort of repositioning. There's a hinge here. Hingings are demons to get round, and they do send your stenciling a little bit off. But on the bigger scale of life, I think it's how I kind of tend to deal with the hinges, just kind of pat it into it. Wee bit of straightening up again. You can see my fingers on the part where there's no design, so I'm not covering that up. A lot of how to do this is how you hold what you're using. Don't worry too much if you're bleeding it onto the black. We can fix all of these things. The more important thing is we get our pattern down. This part here of our stencil is a bit movie, so it moves around a bit. So you kind of have to watch when you're twirling it. So, like so. Now, you get the gist. This is going down, round, round. Think about what I always say about a frame. This is a frame, this is a frame, this is a frame, this is going to be a frame, this is a frame. So you can, every part is a frame. So I'm going to set this part to the side, the stencil to the side for a moment, because we can come back and deal with that. What am I going to do next? I'm just going to clean my brush.
Just going back around again.
And I'm just going to get some black. And I am just going to literally touch up those parts there so they've got a chance to dry by the time we get to the next part. Just run it along it. It just tidies it up a bit. And just use a wee small artist brush for it. You can use masking tape if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Let's just get rid of this here as well. Paint that away. Just tidy it up. There now. That's as good as I'm making it. This here looks a bit untidy. Right, okay, so we've done that, and that you can imagine is going all the way around. While this is drying, because I want to paint onto this, but it's not quite ready to paint onto, and you don't want to be doing anything you shouldn't be doing. This is the shape that I've chosen for the front. It's a redesign by Prima stamp. It is from the folk art. Yes.
I'll find out and put it in the description.
It's from the folk art set. I was going to use a stencil for the flower, but I thought this one here is quite pretty. I'm just going to stamp it up on top. Haven't done anything with the top yet, so there's no crisis to stamp up on there. It's just that you always need to stamp on a hard surface, always. And kind of stick it right in the centre. And again, now this is going to be a stamp it, paint it, stamp, well, no, just a stamp it, paint it, because I don't re-stamp, but so you're going to have to make sure that you've got it all stamped out so that you've got something to follow, like so. And I'm going to show you how I paint one of these in. Ta-da! Now, you're going to need a little totty wee fine artist brush for this, probably. My brushes are between your legs, Matt.
Sorry.
Now, what kind of brush would you think is going to be? See this one here? I think this one here is going to be the right dandy for it. Now, remember the colour palette that we looked at? It's down here on my mat. We've got our pink, we've got our green, and our lime green, and I'm going to put a little bit of the black sort of navy down on here because I'm going to need some of that as well. Why am I doing that? It's just so I can add a little bit of water if I choose, and just if you just dribble some from your water. Oh, it helps if I turn the brush around the right way, doesn't it? Yeah, just so you can work it. Now, let's just set about painting this in, and this there is no real skill to. It's just painting in a shape, and everybody can paint in a shape, so we're good. So because I've used black, and let's think about our design again. Because I've used black, and if you look at the original inspo, the star was the blacky navy colour. So this is, I'm kind of paying homage to my inspo again, but with the inspo had a star shape in it, or more a star sort of flower shape, but I'm going to do it. As I said, I want mine to take a sort of florally kind of direction. So let's just whip round here quick as I can so that we're not taking forever. Do these as well. Now, while this section's drying, we'll go back up and work on the cream colour, and then when we've done this cream patch up here, we can then come back and work on this because it'll be dry enough that we can. Now you can see I'm not being perfect. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Now, okay, brush and water. back up to here. I think I'm just going to clean the brush and use the same. How I'm going to do it is the pink flowers. Let's just water down a little bit of our pink, ready to use. Our inspo had a thick cream border around quite a lot of the pattern, so pretending that this is the thick cream border, I'm just going to do this with the pink flowers and paint these in like this. And there's another one here. And this is how I'm going to add my colours into the piece that, oh, too much paint on the brush there. There's no more flutter. Oh, yep. So now I'm kind of like, that's, oh, there's a brush here in my paint there. This is how I'm going to introduce the colour. It's same palette choices really as my inspo. I have not messed around with the colours. Right, so that's the pink done, and I'm kind of emulating the cream border by doing this. Now I'm going to take the lime, which is the furrow paint, and the big leaves I'm going to paint in lime or furrow with my cream border. And I'm just doing that. And when I do that all the way around, it makes much more of a statement, but we've only got a little amount of it stenciled at the moment. It's just there's quite a lot of design work, so I thought I'd try and kind of show you as a whole, instead of going away and coming back and going away and coming back. Tidy up that edge there. Yeah, so that's that colouring. Clean your brush, and then with the green, which is the Antibes green, making sure there's some water in it. If your paint's sitting in your palette too long, make sure you add a little bit of water just to help it run. I'm just going to do something like this here on these leaves here. This is a different part of the pattern, but we'll do this just so it works. Try not to lean on that flower underneath. Here and here. And how did I come across, how did I hit on this idea? Because it's about inspiration. How did I decide that this is what I was going to do? Well, I looked at the inspo picture, the inspo light again, and went, I can see there's a lot of the cream with the colour in it, because it's got the tissue paper around it for when the light lights up. And I thought I need to introduce the colours, and I thought, but I want to be more florally. And then I thought, how about just putting a part of a stencil and picking pieces out? And this is how I got to this stage of the proceedings. Now, next thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this green furrow paint, and I am going to go round this part here of my flower. My paint's got quite thick, so no one's talking, Martin. We're concentrating. That's the green. And now I'm going to take the other, the Antibes green. And I'm going to paint these. Hang on a minute. Sometimes your paint gets so watered down that it's not as bright. So by all means, you need to water it down to make it work, but you also don't want to water it down too much that it's almost watercolour. There we go. And I'm just painting that in quite well. And I'm in the pink. Like so. And now I am going to get a black Posca. Oh, sorry, Martin. Hitting the camera. Sorry. It was my lid was stiff. think you can see where this is going. I'm going to outline all of this part here in cream, but I'm going to let that settle a minute and work on a different part right now. So this part here, this arc, what I did was I did it with a liner. So let's just find my liner brush. Yeah, no. So I'm just putting some black on a liner and doing something like that.
Oh, sorry.
You're so close, Mary. If you miss a part, just go back over it again. Right. And I think there's one more which is going this way. I'm going to let those dry because I put spots in those in a minute. Now, this black border here, while this is all drying, this is a weird thing. It was a while ago when Martin and I were starting to trial stencils. This was a wee part of something that I had asked for. It's kind of had its day, really, if I'm honest with you. I mean, there's quite a lot of paint stuck in the apertures, but it's tiny little stars. Let's just get a brush that I can work with these, because you just need a tiny little brush, and it doesn't need to be a stencil brush, but a brush that's going to work. Kind of rougher, a thicker brush, if you know what I mean. Thicker. Yeah, let me take this one here. So I'm going to be putting my paintbrush in the cream, and there's no point trying to put stars in here because of the recesses. So the flat parts, oh, I've got to watch that these are dry. Where can I go? I'll do here because I know this is dry. I just want sort of stars on here. I'm wondering if I could maybe get, I just don't want to be leaning on that other one. Kind of. Like this. I'll move this down a bit. I can probably do in here as well. Now, what I then got was a thin Posca, because if you look at my inspo, and we'll have, next time I come back on camera, we'll have a look at the inspo. There's all these little spots, but they kind of reminded me from a distance when I looked at my light of little stars. So I'm wanting to kind of make a sort of starry sort of background here on the black. You can make some dots bigger than others. For example, make that one there a bit bigger. And like, you know, when you do snow and you do lots of different kind of sizes and shapes, like that. Yeah? Something like that. So that's how I did this border. I'm just trying to be systematic in everything that I show you. So we've got this, we know what we're doing. This is going to, when this is dry, it's going to have spots on it, because there's an awful lot of spots on my inspo. So it's going to have spots. I don't want to do too many if they're not dry. I think if you do this kind of work, you spend half your time waiting for the next part to dry. Now we've done in here, and I think we're pretty much good to go. You've got options here. If you're not good and you think, I'm going to struggle to paint in here with a liner, use a cream Posca. Either or. I'm probably just going to use a liner and just clean it off. And I need the more Versailles again because I've used quite a lot of that. So that's the cream. And you're going to need a little bit of water in this because I'm just going to spray it with water because my paint tub is getting a little bit saturated. So I'm just kind of thinning it out a bit, thinning it out like you would do when you're using a black liner. You need to thin it. And then what I kind of do is, let me show you on this side of the stencil, is I get my liner brush and I go round in a circle like that and then pull it off so that my paint is in it. But when I start to paint, it's going to be quite thin. The lines are going to be quite thin. So, and then all you're doing is a funny angle. Is you're going to be lining around your flower. Silence. Marty, you say something while I'm doing this. Because I can't talk and concentrate.
I'm mesmerised as well.
I always think that if you do like liner work and you fast forward it, it always looks really interesting. I remember when I did the Annie Sloan inlay for IOD and I did a lot of hand painting and I filmed it myself, so the video quality wasn't great. So Marty came along and fast forwarded lots of parts and put music behind it, and suddenly it made me look like an artist, which made me giggle because anyway, I'm just gonna
Don't worry.
our phone's ringing. They can ring back. They don't realise I'm in the middle of a
Masterpiece.
well, let's not get too giddy about it. I think that
It's probably the man from Royal Mail that's been trying to get hold of me. I'm trying to find ways to be able to get our decoupage paper around the world faster than it currently gets there.
Are you figuring it out yet?
I think so, yeah.
I don't have anything to do with these parts of the business. So now I'm taking the 1M, which is the tiniest of the Poscas, and again this is in cream, and I'm going round here, round here, round here. And once I'd done this shape, literally, I did the same on every other aperture, but the one below and the door below, it has two of this shape because it's a bigger space to fill, and so I wanted to have a bit more of a sort of focal point. I'm sorry, this is literally watching like paint dry as I do this, but I just want to finish that. And I did and here, and that was how that looked. Next, this part here, now we've got problems because our stencil is in the water. Let's just see if I can dry this off. What did I do with my cloth? It's behind you.
It's behind you.
Now, unfortunately, this one will not clean. This wasn't the pink from what I'm about to do. This was a pink from an old piece. And as long as there's no paint in my apertures and it's dry so that I know I'm not going to get bleed through, I'm actually okay with it. Now, this time round, I'm going to be using the pink. And I've got an awful lot on this pink. This over here, I'm trying to think how I can get rid of it. Let's just kind of, it was sitting in my pink on its side, so I don't want a messy. Okay, so putting this in here, and literally, oh, see, there's an awful lot of paint in my pink. We could have a bit of bleed through here, guys. There's quite a lot of pink on my brush. you just have to kind of jam your nail in the bottom part if you're going into something like this. And kind of guess where you want it again. Guesstimate. Whoopsie, moved a little bit, yeah. There's your scissors here. No, I'll just put it on this way around because a bit of a big gap. Make sure I get it in the spots this time. I missed out some of the spots up the top and I'm not happy about that, right? So that's there. And let's bring this over. And the good thing about stenciling is you can see underneath. Your stencil doesn't have to be see-through. I mean, this is pink and I can still understand where I'm going. You just have to kind of like hone your sort of stenciling. Oh, that's not very straight. Oh dear. Okay. I got the bigger, I don't know if I did this in liner or not. I think I did. Let's just use liner for this dot. Do you know what I used? I used the end of a paintbrush. Let me just get a good sized paintbrush.
I was going to say, you sure that's not the end of a paintbrush?
Yeah, yeah. Now, in my eye, I'm going to straighten this up with my dots here. You can see how I'm slightly underneath that. Dip it in the bottom again. Right, so where have we got to here? Let's just have a quick look at. We know what this band's going to be like. We've done this starry band. We know that's going to continue all the way around. This is going to go right across the top. The only thing I've got left to do is a design coming down here. And I know for a fact that I don't have the stencil for the middle. I'm talking in past tense because obviously, you know, I do the piece. I always work in the same format. I do one side so that I can show you what to do. And then I recreate it on the other side with Martin filming me, and it works just nicely because it means Martin can get on with his worky jobs, and it means that I can obviously have a play around to make sure that I'm happy with the design. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm just crazy and I wing it, but most of the time it works this way, doesn't it, Martin?
Yeah. And then when I'm doing the filming, I desperately try not to show you anything that she's already done.
It's like spoiler alert. I don't want you to see it and how it looks full until
she's shown you
I'm showing you what to do. So Martin has to be like a contortionist while this all happens. There's something wrong, you see. I tell you why. I like to be on that side of furniture, not this side of furniture. So I always do this side first. But it would make sense if I did this side first and then Martin filming from there, but never mind.
She's like Zoolander.
Zoolander can't turn left.
She can only go left.
I was going to say that, but I wasn't sure whether people would get the reference because it always makes me laugh. Right, I'm going to now do the spoiler alert and I'm going to get Martin to show you.
Oh, I can finally
show you the other side and we can talk about it.
Get a slightly wider angle.
Yeah, right. So here we have it. Let's just have a wee look at this as it is. So this line here that you saw me stencil is going to join this one here. We've done the wee stars all around. They were stenciled nicer on this side than the ones I showed you on camera. I think I get nervous. The white design with the pink design with the black and the white spots, it's been done. This has been done. This has been done. And all our floral shapes have been done. I've painted the handle pink, which I can now go on and do that. And there was sort of recesses in the furniture here, which I went and painted in pink. The only thing you missed is me doing this black border down here, which we will get to. And I think because I enjoy the stars so much, and I like it, that sort of look on the light, even though it isn't stars. I'm going to do stars down here, make it a little bit magical. The sides haven't got to yet. As far as the sides have gone, there's 2 sort of recesses, and all I've done so far is put the black border around, and I've put this stencil in black on the blue on the inside, but we'll do the sides next. I'm going to complete this cupboard. I'm still toying, tell me if I'm crazy, but I'm actually thinking of doing the top pink.
You're crazy.
Do you not think that will work?
No,
And do you
baby,
think
baby, I learned a long time ago not to question your judgment on things. You're
intended,
always right. So
I had intended to do it black.
sometimes you pick colours, I go, oh, really? But it always looks amazing. So you do you.
What I still have to figure out is this bottom band down here. This bottom band. I want a wider, so we might come back with this. The one that we use for just the parts. I might tip it on its side and do this in white and go back in with the colour, or I might not. We have to think about that. This is the thing about that I was saying about the design, because we've talked about our inspo, we've talked about our colour scheme. The design is the part where you really have to ferret through what you own, because that helps. Identify things that you think might work for your inspiration. So obviously I didn't have, well, I do actually, that's not true. I do have many Indian stencils which I could have made look more like the light, but the light belongs to somebody else. So that would be copying. There's inspo and plagiarism, and I'm not down for creating something that A, somebody else has done, and B, copying to the letter. It's different if I'm showing you a tutorial. You're going away at home and make this, and this is a different thing I'm showing you. But when I'm trying to sell something, my inspo can be there and thereabouts, but you would never known that where it came from. So I kind of in my head went, I'm going to change some of the Indian shapes to florals. So it was already again a bit of a spoiler alert, because I'd already rifled like a ferret through everything that I had and wanted to pull out. So, but the best thing to do is how I'm telling you. Look at the inspo, get your colour palette organised. How are you going to make the design first? Because with all the best will in the world, you might want to do X, but if you don't have the stencils or the stamps or the pieces to make it, then you can't do it. So you have to look at what you've got and then think about your design. How is it going to work? Kind of go, I'm going to change that, make it florally, or if it's dragons, I'm going to make them cats, or if it's, I don't know, hedgehogs, I'm going to make them berries. You know, swap out a like for like. So you're swapping out your colours, you're swapping out what they are, you're swapping out the shape. If it's a square, do a triangle. If it's a circle, do a heart. You know, this is how you do it. You're changing it, and you're changing it to what you have. Yeah, and then you own it.
Yeah,
it's yours. These are just, everything I'm showing you here are just starters for you to fly, just ways to get from A to B to make something really pretty. That's it. Because everything that you use and the colours that you choose, I constantly think this about my decoupage paper. I have a decoupage company. You would think that when people use my decoupage paper, my children are about to just come rolling in the door in a minute. So stay outside.
We'll pause, shall we?
I'll tell you about that in the next frame. Half day in school on a Friday in Scotland, so they come careering in the back door. They don't care whether we've got a job to do or not. Anyway, what I was trying to say was inspiration. I make the decoupage paper and I make a piece of furniture to show people. Then I go into our decoupage group. We have if you don't know this already, Made by Marley, there's a Made by Marley Decoupage Clan Facebook group where if you use Made by Marley paper, you're welcome to post or inspiration, and it's a lovely group. But anyway, I then see other people using my paper, and also I've already done that design in my head, and they come out, there is not a single one the same. Now you would think that there has to be an element of, if it's the same paper, a piece is going to look similar, but it doesn't. I could look at them forever and say they're all totally unique, aren't they, Mary?
They are, yeah.
They're all different.
Yeah.
And you think, Wow, I think sometimes,
Sometimes I'm looking at them and I can't really tell what the paper is until I really look at it and go, that's my
yeah,
darling Clementine, or that's Big Moth, or that's, you
yeah.
know.
They just, it's so inspiration is, they may have seen me do it. We may all have the paper, but what they can do with it. And do you know what as well, which I always love, and it inspires me, because that group inspires me. It makes me come with my A game sometimes, because I go, I'm letting the side down here. I'm not worthy. But the colour choices that people use to use with my paper, it always amazes me.
Yep, they're all everybody in that group is a fully paid up member of the Color Revolution.
Yeah, if you want to show your work and you do use Made by Marley paper and you want to feel part of a group of people who are truly inspiring, then I would join that group. It's a great group,
Yeah,
and
they are.
they are
They're all,
really
and they're all
lovely
lovely,
and all
really nice and
supportive,
supportive and kind.
everybody
And
cheers everybody else
yeah,
on as well. It's just a nice group to be involved in. But that's just about obviously inspiration, and what gets put in the pipe at the end is completely different when it's fed out at the end. If you put it in at the pipe and it comes out looking like it at the end, then you know, you need to change it up. You need to look at your pattern, you look at your design, and think, right, well, what can I do that makes this my own? Anyway, it took me nearly all day yesterday to just, at least 4 or 5 hours. I don't know why. I was obviously on a go slow to do this yesterday. So I did have to paint the piece and everything. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a wee bit cheeky, and off camera, I'm going to paint the top pink. If we don't like it, we can.
it'll be black when
Well,
next time you see it.
It's not like the live videos where I can ask people if they like it or not. You can't actually answer me until this piece is done. But if Martin and I don't like it, well, we can paint it a different colour. Okay? Cool. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm just doing this bottom panel. I just found another stencil that kind of complements the overall sort of finish of the piece, because I didn't show you on this one because I still haven't found the stencil, but I put this little flower in the middle of this one, and I thought this flower here complements it. There's no dots, holes in this one to line it up with the next one, so I've just kind of put it in beside it as close as I could. And I'm just doing it in cream. I'm not going to labour over this. It's just to show you how I'm doing this bottom part. I was going to put black on it, but I think I won't. I've also done a quick pink line up there to see what I thought if I was sitting away from it to look to see whether the pink would work, and I think it's going to work. So
I think it does as well.
yeah. Oh, do you? Oh,
yes,
good.
I do.
Oh,
yes.
Fabulous. Right. Well.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, I think it
definitely
is.
Does. Yeah.
I think it is going to work. So that's all I'm doing here. I'm just lining this just slightly back up with where I've been before and just starting again. And it's just more of the same. I've got my Versailles paint on my stencil, and I'm just swirling it and twirling it and making sure that the stencil isn't moving. I'm not lifting it around. I'm not lifting it so that there's any bleed through underneath. I've got the right amount of paint on my brush, and all the things that you think about when you do stenciling. That's all I'm doing here. I'm just making sure that the most important thing is that I'm not lifting it so that paint can get underneath it, and I'm not moving it so that it shifts and the paint smears underneath it, because that's 2 reasons for bleed through. There we go now. Voila. It's a wee bit down there. Cheeky thing. I have to fix this part anyway because this was part of the cream, but I will do it before I tip it back up onto its side. But this is how the bottom part's going to look, and I think this is going to really give it another, because it's a wider thought out pattern than as opposed to a tight pattern. I think that'll finish the bottom off really nicely. So I've got this flower to stencil in here, but it's just a stencil that I just painted in, which I'll be putting here, and then we'll get quickly on to the sides once I've done the top pink. Okay, so I put the black band around here, and this time round, instead of using the cream on the black, I put this inside the aperture. What we're going to do next, I'm going to use this stencil. I want this part centered, but I do want to be able to put this sort of coloured bands in as well. But so that's why I'm kind of keeping, do you understand, I'm keeping enough for the top and the bottom. I didn't explain that very well. I'm keeping enough so that I can flip this round and have these colours on top as well. So this is a different stencil, but it's the one, is it the one? Yeah, it's the one I used on the bottom. It's not a different stencil at all. So again, we're just kind of, but I'm not doing the flower this time, so I'm avoiding the flower. I'll show you what I'm going to do in the centre of that in a minute. And again, I'm just going to try and break this part down quickly so that it's not too long. So this is going to go in here like this. And remember, this is the design part of the inspo. So you have to kind of like think about your design. Stop and think about it. Just don't start too quick. Now I need
Sorry.
okay, sorry, I'm trying to move past Matt and try this so it goes. Right, so we're going to be doing the pink along here. And you can see each time, I'm not using stencil, I'm using stencil brush for the big ones, but I'm just using paint brushes. As long as you've got your method down.
Which is the swirly method.
That's right, Martin, you've
Yep.
said it. The swirly twirly method works. And I just need another brush to do the green, which is this colour here. And I'm just going to run this down the diamond shape here. There, we can remove this and it looks a bit like that. Now I can already see there's a wee part here, and because I've got some glue on my brush.
Sorry.
And what I'm actually going to do is smooth this part here out with some of the glue behind it. There. Now, next thing, I'm going to take my stamp that I used on the front, because this is how we're going to pull the sides together. I'm literally going to stamp this stamp. Now that could still be a bit damp to stamp it, but I'm just going to put this in here like this. And I probably should have waited until this was dry to show you. And then the way that I painted the front, this shaping in the front, it's just exactly the same way that I'm going to paint this one in on the sides. Nothing different. There's no, just the same, the black with the cream outline with the pink in the middle and the two lots of green, just so we're pulling that all together. So I've got that to paint in. I can make that part up, it's just because I haven't pushed dry enough. I'm going to bring my stencil back, flip it this way round and get these two shades on this side. And again, if you're doing this, you're going to be waiting. You're not going to be doing what I'm doing and just glibly stenciling over the top of it. I just want to make sure that this is kind of reasonably straight. Good. Because you do really need things dry before you work over the top of them. So again, I'm going to do it. Now, whatever I do in this window, I'm going to do in the window below. So you already know, you've seen me paint in the centre flower, so we don't need to repeat that. You saw me doing this on the front, so I didn't show you that. And I'm just going to show you again quickly what I'm doing with the edges, this black edge. And where's my green? And then, to be honest with you, I've done the top pink. It's had two coats. I do the little light sand along this edge. It's a bit of build up. And I really like texture. I want this to be a little bit more smoother. So that's the green. And the pink done. And when this is painted in, it looks really good because I've obviously done the other side already. These sides here, I am just using the little tiny little star stencil, and just, which I have now cleaned so that we've got a nice crisp lot of stars going on. And I'm just going to alternate this around this edge till I get lots of little
you can flip it around. I mean, not the chances are you're not going to have a stencil like this because obviously we make this ours, but little stars, anything, star stamp. I mean, maybe this is something we could think about, Martin. Stars, a little tiny star, because it is really handy. I use this quite a lot, but I keep losing it. It's so small. It's just a tiny little piece of a stencil, and I keep losing it. But when I find it again, I always feel quite happy. So all I'm doing is this, and the same as before. I'm literally going to do like sort of big dots to kind of fill it in like this, a big Sharpie like that. And then I'm going to come along with my smaller one and just do tiny little ones. And that's what I'm going to fill the border up with. And do my little kind of stars. And this is my sort of nod to the original piece of inspo, really. And I've still made it different because on the original inspo it was little spots, but I've made it stars. And I think it makes it kind of interesting. So I've some of those together because we're doing stars. So right. So the same deal with this flower, the green, the pink, blah 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 blah. Right? And this is going to be the same thing here. It's going to repeat it here. This the last thing here I've got to do before I go away is I want to paint this band because the cream comes to here on this edge. It just kind of stops. And initially I had just painted this sort of edge in, and I thought, well I won't. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to paint the whole lot cream so that this whole band is cream. Masking tape on the front so it doesn't run over. Masking tape is your friend for these kind of things. If you think you're going to make a mistake. Now it kind of sits up a bit. It's a little bit prouder. I think because I don't really want it going out black. I'm just going to tape. Just to keep it tidy. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just painting this in cream now. And really, to be honest with you, I'm going to seal it with French Chic Tough Top Coat Sealer, but I'm not going to do it tonight because I haven't got any. But tomorrow we'll get it sealed up and that will be it. It feels like it's been a long video, but for footage wise, when it comes to the sort of repetition ones, that once I've shown you once, there's no point in watching it over and over again. It's inspiration for you to take your particular piece of inspo, and hopefully I've kind of helped you out on the how you find it, what you do, and now that way you can look at anything, a sunset, grass, shoes lined up in a row, doors. I mean, I've had all sorts of interest and inspiration just because I see it. If you're out and about and you see something that takes your fancy and you've got your mobile phone with you, take a photo of it. That's what I do.
It's true. Sometimes when we're out and about on our journeys, we'll be driving along, I'll be sitting at a set of traffic lights or something, and I'll be like, pull over if you can. And out she jumps with her phone and taking photographs of the strangest things.
Because sometimes you see something, like I was driving behind a truck the other day, and it was a really good piece of inspo for me because I liked the colour of the truck. I liked the colour of the font. It was a sort of vintage font on it, and I thought it was a nice and an interesting truck to be driving behind. And I've kind of stored it away in my memory banks because from that I've envisaged like a sort of old vintage kind of like taking a piece of furniture and making it look like an old vintage ad, and thinking of maybe putting an owl on it because the van I saw was a really dark burnt orange, and maybe like something like black owl coffee or something, so you can get it from anywhere. It just happens.
The amount of doors and rusty old things and bits of wall and moss and things like that. The amount of things in and around Edinburgh that Lels had me stop for.
Yeah, these are things that I kind of think I can grab something from. So it is, inspiration is in the world. It's out there. Has anybody seen Up? Adventure is out there. That's what it's like. It's there.
You don't like that film, do you?
I don't like the film.
It's sad.
Makes me. It's too relevant to when you get older, and I think it makes me feel awful sad. And I don't think I could blow up all those balloons. Anyway, there we go. This is where we're at. I'm gonna, once I've got this side, I'm gonna flip it round. I'm just gonna leave it here overnight, which is a good thing to do as well. Good practice. It's got you know, time to kind of just sit overnight. It won't be cured obviously, but it'll be nice and dry for sealing tomorrow. And I think the pink really worked out in my favour. I really like the pink. It's an interesting little piece, this. It's just funny how an inspiration piece can take you in a whole different way, and I never really imagined what it was going to actually happen to be like, because obviously I did it live as we went along, so it's been quite interesting for me. So good times. Okay, so I'll get on and do this. Okay, so this was a really fun one. I mean, inspiration, as I've said throughout the video, can come from anything, anywhere. Washing lines with clothes hanging on it. I mean, just anything. You can pick colours from that. You can pick a shape from it. You can just keep working on it until, you know, that was your inspiration. Your inspiration does not need to, it doesn't need to, and quite often should not look like what it began with. So obviously here is my light, my lovely Indian shade that I got at the Christmas market, and this is the piece that I've made. So there's so many differences. In fact, you wouldn't have ever have thought that this piece was inspired by this light. You can tell the colours are there. You can see that the colours are there, but apart from that, I took it in a different direction. I took it in a very floral direction, which is not like the light. I wanted the florals, I think, because it was an aircot and it had these recesses, these apertures. I think we needed some flowers and things like that. So there was a lot of stencil work. So nothing complicated in today's work. All stamps, all stencils, no hand painting. Well, you know what I mean. No fancy hand painting. You know, I painted in the shapes, but that's easy enough. Nothing tricky about it at all. Squish easy. Relatively quick to do as well. Probably about a day and a half. You'd be good with this. So, I mean, this is something that you could try. Find a piece of inspo at home, take a photograph, look on Pinterest. But when you do look on Pinterest, be careful that you are not plagiarizing somebody else's work. You know, by all means, take it and run with it, but make sure that you swap your colors or make it different so that you know where the inspo came from, but it's not like anything you've seen. Try and be original. Try and be unique, try and be different, because these all help when you go to sell your furniture. Nothing really more else to say about that. You know, it wasn't complicated, and so I don't have to. So what did we do? Because we know what we did. We painted it and we stamped it and stenciled it. So it's all good here. That's it. That's it for today. If you've enjoyed this video, like it, share it. Lots of shares, and I really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. I am still answering every single comment that I get across all social media and YouTube. I am demented.
Yeah,
anyway,
you're gonna start getting some of your lovely questions to Lau answered by me with what I maybe think, because it is getting to the point of being overwhelming sometimes for Lau. She spends all week answering comments.
I think that what I do is I jump between furniture and comments, and but the thing is, I believe that if you have taken the time, because some of your comments are so lovely, if you've taken the time to write to me, I think it warrants a nice response, and everybody gets a nice response, and I think that that is a nice thing to do. So I don't want to be removed from that either, because I like reading your comments. I get entertained reading your comments, especially the ones where you say my heart was in my mouth, it looked like a hot mess, but it got there in the end. I love those ones, the ones that people think that I'm all shock and awe, and today there was no shock and there was no awe. You could see where it was going, so it was a nice sort of, your heart didn't need to be in your mouth. But we'll see you again next Sunday, won't we, Mary?
We will.
Yeah. Okay. So bye bye.
Bye bye.